right, it's the vernal equinox, the first day of spring. You know what that means. Ready? I think I got it.
You got it.
You think I got it?
Yeah. Aww.
Well, you know what else it means? It means the sun's out, the birds are chirping, and it's time to have a casual conversation about a couple chill little nature-themed board games. Peace was never an option. Look, I want to start here. You can own both of these games. They're not the same exact game. If you have $80 and you like what one offers, you're highly likely to enjoy what the other offers. So this doesn't have to be an either or, all that. And that being said, there's no way that the board game hobby is going to be able to avoid comparing these two games. You have a nature theme. You have wooden eggs and wooden tree trunks and canopies. You have tableau building. You have a big deck of cards that you're not going to get through in any one or probably even any two games. They're a lot alike. They're both beautiful. There's a lot here that's going to bring these two together, but remember, you can have both. But if you can't have both, or you just don't want to, you should probably buy Earth. Hey look, I love Wingspan. When Connor and I first started this whole YouTube podcast thing, we did our top 6 favorite games. That was less than a year ago. Wingspan was in my top 6, and it's not far off from there. It didn't do anything to me in the last year to dissuade me of that. This isn't really about Wingspan. Wingspan is what it is, and maybe what it is doesn't jive with you. Maybe you see it as a big long game of find a raven in a haystack, and it does have some balance issues, and it can be pretty swingy, but it really scratches an itch for a lot of people as a beautiful game with a different type of theme, maybe not as different anymore as what it was when it came out, but it's a game that I've seen attract people to the hobby, and that's worth something that's valuable. But if you're already in the hobby and certain aspects of this game really rubbed you the wrong way, or you're in the hobby and you really loved it and just haven't been playing as much recently, just let me show you Earth. All right, before we even get to our personal player board, which is a lot of the game, we're going to talk about this communal board here. These are scoring options available for everyone. And with these fauna cards, these are things that will happen in-game, and the first person to go ahead and be able to satisfy this at the bottom here, 4+ events in your event stack, which I'll explain in a moment, they would get to take the top spot here, and they're going to be the only person to get 15 points. The next person can get this, put their marker down, but they're only going to get 11 points, right? So there's a race to these fauna cards. You know, get 4 bush type flora, have 5+ cards, each having 2 different abilities. All these things are happening throughout the game, mostly in your tableau that you're about to build, and it's a race. Over here, you have these ecosystem cards, and these will be things that at the end of the game, if your tableau, your hopefully 4x4 tableau, has flora with 3 or more of these stacked wooden pieces, you're going to go ahead and get 3 points for each one of those. And so these give you, like a lot of games, a pathway. Let me go for this. Let me try this. The other thing about this is, if you want to play maybe kind of a friendlier version of the game, you can just go with the 4 fauna cards and their scoring, and it's 10 points if anybody gets them, not as much of a race. You also have this here where I believe the first person to complete their 4x4 grid will get to claim this, get 7 points. The first thing you're going to do in the game is you're going to be dealt out island cards. I believe you get 2 of these, and they're double-sided, and climate cards, same thing. And of course that changes depending on how tough of a game you want to play. But these will do 2 things. One, they're worth endgame points just right off the bat. They're like any of the cards you have in the game. In fact, when you have scoring objectives that talk about how many cards have maybe the sunshine thing there. These cards count, okay? But you're gonna choose some combination, and that's gonna be here on your board. So this is saying, you know, here's how many cards you start with, here's how many you need to compost, which goes into this pile, and then here's how much soil you get. Soil is the currency of the game. What's gonna happen on your turn is the active player is going to choose one of these four to do. So I'm not here to give you a full how to play. These are the actions in the game, you know, how I'm going to get cards into my tableau, how I'm going to get kind of the game's currency, how I'm going to add points onto my cards and do some other things as well, get more cards into my hand. That's all the stuff going on there. But where the game really comes alive is the tableau. So let's take a quick look at the cards, okay? There's a lot going on here. First of all, let me just say this. They chose photography over illustrated artwork, but it's really nice photography, okay? We're not talking about terraforming Mars garbage. These are really cool pictures, really evocative. And so what you have here is how much it's going to cost you in soil. Again, that's the game's currency. You pay that from your supply, you put this card out. When you do a tableau, you know, your first card can go anywhere, but there's not a game mat, right? You're not set in one place. You know, if you start doing this and then you realize, oh, I want to bring these down a little bit, you can do that. The only rule is that once you've played a card, the next card has to be adjacent, but that does allow for diagonal adjacency. So these cards have symbols on them. Those will work a lot towards scoring. They tell you how tall you would stack these awesome wooden pieces. Okay, it's going to be harder with the overhead, but this has 4. And these are going to be worth 1 victory point per. You're building up this 3-dimensional little tree on top of your card. But when you get to that final one, there's 4 on this, you top it with a canopy. Fun little thing on scoring here is they're all worth 1 victory point. But if you get the canopy on top, you get this for scoring instead of just 1 each. So something to go for to maximize your score. It's also got just a base amount of victory points on it. It has room, potentially, usually, for these little sprouts, which, again, are just 1 victory point per. And these are things you're going to be able to spend. For instance, on this card, -1 sprout from anywhere in your tableau to gain 1 soil token. And that's what we're getting to here is this tableau. What you're going to have to do is, from left to right, top to bottom, you activate every time the action is chosen that matches the color. So again, bringing you back to our board, there's these color-coded actions, and the real hook of the game I'm going to explain in a moment, at least for me, the real hook of the game. But these cards are going to do everything from have, you know, actions that you can follow with, or endgame scoring. And these black abilities are just a one-time, put this down, get 6 soil. So some instant effects, some endgame scoring effects, some ongoing effects when the matching action is taken. And here's what I mean by that matching action being taken. I showed you this earlier, but on your turn, you're going to choose one of these and you're going to do what's on top. Then, going clockwise after you, all of your opponents are going to be able to follow it with a lesser version of the same action. But this is the meaty strategy thing that so many Euro games, tableau builders don't have. So many engine building tableau builders are really an exercise in let me do my own multiplayer solitaire thing and then wait, check my phone, look what's on TV behind us while my other opponents are going. This doesn't have that. This has that glory to Rome, that Reavers of Midgard kind of, hey, even when it's not my turn, I'm going to get to take an action. And not only is that fun and cool, but it's something that you can plan for, that you can say, hey, they look really low on soil. I bet they're going to take the red action next. Maybe let me do something different because I'm going to get to glob onto their red action. And the tableau that I've built might have some red action stuff to go along with it. So this is what I'm talking about. If my opponent takes the red action, I get to choose either 2 soil or 2 compost from the deck. Everything that goes into this compost pile here, each card is 1 point at the end of the game. Then I can choose if I want to activate my board first or my tableau first. This says +2 on card draw. If you chose the red action, I get to take 2 cards into my hand. Then I can go over here. Again, I could flip-flop that, do my tableau first. +2 composted cards from the deck. Another symbol shows a hand that says composted cards from your hand. That is also a point. Everything in this pile is a point, but it can be a little more hurtful because they're no longer available to be used or planted. And then, you know, go on down. This one is going to activate with any of these 3 abilities. Spend a sprout to get a soil, and you get to go do all that, and you get to maximize whatever kind of thing you're going for. Let me tell you what I mean. Hey, don't come to me for strategy. I'm very much just learning the game, have gotten a few plays in, but maybe you want to use this tableau to really be an engine. That's such a satisfying thing in games, we know that, and maybe you really want to maximize this get soil action. So when you take it yourself and get 5 soil +2 composted, or even when you follow, because in both situations you get to activate your tableau and your board, you'll get +2 soil or +2 compost. Then look what's going to happen. So I do that, then I'm going to get 3 more. If I have somewhere the start of one of these little trees here, I can spend 1 off my board to get 2 cubes. You can put those anywhere. Then I can spend a cube to get 2 more, get 1 more, and for good measure, throw 2 on my compost pile. With 1 action that's getting the rest of my opponents, certainly probably far less than that, I am getting 5, 8, 11, 13, 14 soil if I'm taking the action. Of course, 11 soil if my opponents are, but think about that for a second. My opponent needs to go get some more soil to buy cards, and every time they do, I'm getting 11 or 9 soil if everything works out. That's something you can absolutely do in this game, is just have a huge engine going. But this won't get you points. Now maybe you want to go heavy into the terrain cards. Some terrain cards will have one of those passive ongoing abilities. This one, every time you plant a card, you're going to get to draw an extra card at the end of that. That's really good. But the brown cards are the terrain cards, really more about these endgame scoring. And it's endgame scoring relative to what's going on in your terrain. My last example was a big, huge chainable engine that was just going to make soil and make soil and make soil. This one has far less of that going on, but if you look here, I have 3 points for every mushroom card orthogonally adjacent to this terrain. That's 1, 2, 3 for 9 points at the end of the game. Plus, over here, and again, I'm not maximizing my strategy here, just giving you an example, 5 points for every mushroom diagonally adjacent to this terrain. Orthogonal here, diagonal here. And look, I've got 10 points already. Maybe I'm going to try a mushroom here and a mushroom here to really maximize it, but this will be more of a crawl, right? I will have to take more actions this way to get the stuff I need, as opposed to the last one that was just churning out soil, and I only have to do that a few times a game. But the scoring on here and the puzzle that is, combined with the puzzle that you're creating with, you know, your actions and the order you put them in, you really want to make sure, okay, if this one is making soil, then I want to make sure that I would put it ahead of, in the activation, something that might need me to pay soil of the same color. These types of things are creating a tableau that's both more freeing, giving you more options than a game like Wingspan, and again, so many other games, but also interesting, rewarding. Every game is going to feel different. And of course, there's more going on to the game. These are event cards. You can play them pretty much any time, even not on your turn. And unfortunately, they don't really score you points. In fact, they'll often lose you points, but they're going to let you do something. And I actually really love this. I find this to be really clever. In a lot of engine building games, you get about halfway, 2/3 of the way through, and you realize, I have made my engine too good for one part of the game. You know, maybe that example I gave, I'm just swimming in soil, right? Or maybe I have an engine that's making so many of these little green sprouts, but you know, there's only so many places on them for cards. A card like this would say, hey, if you're making a lot of cubes, but you're struggling to get cards in hand, here's an event card. You got to pay for it in points at the end of the game, but use some of that excess, do something different with it. I think that more engine building games should have something like this. It's kind of a get out of inefficiency free card. And so what you have for endgame scoring at the end of the game is the victory points on cards, victory points added or more often taken away from event cards, 1 victory point per card. I'll just pretend I got a big old stack like that. Not, by the way, that much of a stack is possible for your compost in this game. There's a lot of ways to compost, and you could really go through the roof with that. And they're 1 victory point each of these cards. 1 victory point per sprout on your cards. Again, I'll just give you an example. This one, if it were in my Tableau, has 3. I got 3 spots for it. They're 1 victory point each. Victory point from growth, how I explained earlier, that's the wooden pieces, 1 point per or a little bit more usually when you add the canopy on top. Victory point from terrain cards, those brown cards I showed you in that last example of the Tableau. And then you have your victory points from ecosystems. You'll also draw one of those that's just your scoring. Other people will be able to see it during the game, but that'll be just for you to score. And then I showed you what the ecosystems look like earlier on. And then of course there's those fauna cards, how'd you do on the track, whether you're doing 10 points each or doing the race style. That's the game, but then you're gonna be playing cards that change the scoring. Maybe it gives you more points for cards in your compost or different things like that. And the customizability of what this game is just very gratifying, and I don't think too overwhelming. Hey, I don't know what other board game reviewers' tables look like when they're actually doing this thing, but here's mine. It's a mess. So, look, as I said, I'm not trying to be clickbaity, but really, I don't need to sell you on why you should play this instead of playing Wingspan. There is enough time and in most cases enough money for 2 whole games, okay? And by the way, if I needed to sell you on not playing Wingspan or playing this instead of Wingspan, I wouldn't say any of the stuff I said earlier. I would simply say this game, Earth, does not feature any Canadian geese cards. And that is one bone I have to pick with Wingspan, which is that they, even in a small way, would pay homage to this horrifying creature. I live in Michigan. We have these. They're terrible. They cause swimmers itch with their poop. They're nasty. They're bullies. This card is worth 3 points. It should be worth a -10. The fun fact on it should be geese are jerks. We would get too much pro-geese stuff happening in the world. The Untitled Goose Game and all this stuff. Earth is a goose-free game, and that should be reason enough to pick it. But I don't need to tell you why to pick this over Wingspan. What I need to tell you is that this has a lot in common with Wingspan, a game that is in the top 100, has taken over the imaginations of a lot of players and designers. And maybe, who knows, I don't know if the creators of this game would say they were inspired by Wingspan or not, but there's a lot of shared DNA there. What this game puts over the top for me is that my Tableau is not set in 3 tracks that are, pretty limiting, really. It's something that I can, it's like a blank canvas I can paint on every time I play. And I can go for different stuff based off what's in my hand. Now listen, there are still a ton, these aren't even all of them, a ton of cards in this game that you're going to be picking through. This one's not open yet, right? It's insane how many cards there are. So you don't, once you get to know the game, you don't want to just look for one card the way you would go looking for a raven in a haystack in Wingspan. You want to adjust to what's getting put in your hand and try to do the best with what you've got. And I want to play this. I want to play it with a lot of people. The one thing I will say is Wingspan might be more welcoming. For all the reasons I'm saying this is a better fit for me, I had the opportunity to pull this out in front of some friends the other night, and I backed out. I chose a different game. This does seem like you're not going to bring beginners in with this. You're not going to hook people who are kind of barely in the hobby or board game hobby adjacent. But if you've got friends you like to play with often, if you like Board Game Arena, this game is on there. And if you like really interesting engine building, tableau building stuff, I don't know that I've found anything I'm as excited to play in that realm of games. And so it'll be out soon, more widely available. Man, at a certain online game store, it's $36. Yeah, I would say all across the board. Get it, play it. Earth is awesome, and I can't wait to get more of it on my table. Thanks, everybody.